Things that seem harmless but can be seriously life-threatening. Island beaches. There are a lot of islands in Hawaii that are a lot more dangerous than tourists realize. Islands on the edge of the vast ocean can sweep people in. Wet tile. 17,000 people die annually in the US from falling injuries. Poor dental hygiene. It can actually lead to heart disease, as well as brain abscesses. Mushrooms. There's a saying, there's old mushroom hunters and bold mushroom hunters, but there are no old, bold mushroom hunters. Saving someone with a Heimlich grip. You can definitely rupture someone's organs with this move, and some people have died as a result of being saved from this very procedure. After performing the Heimlich, it's always safe to send the victim to the hospital so they don't bleed to death in their sleep. Walking around the back of a horse or even touching its behind. Horses get frightened very easily. A well-placed kick can break your neck. Lastly, eating a spoonful of peanut butter. If you choke on a big glob, it'll be nearly impossible to dislodge. So, rest in peace, Mr. Peanut Butter. Lotus feet. From the young age of 5 to 8, girls in Tang Dynasty China up into the 1900s would have their feet intentionally broke and folded up into custom shoes. In these times, the smaller feet were seen as more attractive. They were also seen as high class, so even the poorest of poor would break their young daughter's feet just to seem high class. The big toe was left alone, while the other 4 toes are folded underneath the foot and wrapped in a cloth to heal in the position. And I use the term heal loosely, because this practice causes excruciating pain for their entire lives. In the 1800s, the practice became less and less popular, because of the pain and the inability to work and just walk normally. In 1911, binding your feet in this fashion was outlawed in China, but the widespread practice didn't officially end until 1949. Meaning, there are still women alive with these small, historic, golden lotus feet. Either way, it's nice to see cultural norms move away from breaking your daughter's feet, just to seem high class. 5 interesting stuff. Number 5. This is what it looks like to remove ice off of power lines. Speaking of ice, number 4. This is the tide freezing on impact because it's so cold. This occasion is in the UK, but it also happens to the Great Lakes. Number 3. Mars has the biggest volcano in the solar system. It's 3 times taller than Mount Everest, and so wide, it takes up the same area as the state of Arizona. Number 2. A cornea replacement is needed to aid keratoprothesis. They usually have bad vision that diminishes over time, but once the diseased cornea is removed, and this one is implanted, they get to keep their vision, though it won't improve. Number 1. And lastly, if you're watching this video in the US, there's a good chance you live in one of these yellow counties, as 50% of America's population live in them. For Australia, it's even more wild. 50% live within the blue spots. It's crazy to see, but makes sense, because over half the world's humans live in cities. Who would win in a fight? A bear or a gorilla? Let's see what they're working with. We'll be using their best of each species. The silverback gorilla weighs 350 pounds, has a 1,300 psi bite force, is stronger than 20 adult males, something around 4,000 pounds, has above average intelligence, a strong grip force, and can get up to 20 miles per hour at top speed. The silverback intangibles include their long arms for better reach, having a punching force strong enough to shatter its skull, and is smart to come up with semi-detailed plans. The grizzly bear weighs upwards of 700 pounds, a bite force of 1,200 psi, can lift a modest 900 pounds, can run at a top speed of 35 miles per hour. The grizzly's special abilities include 4-inch claws that can rip through metal and are known for tearing off car doors. They have thick protective fur that acts as armor against attacks and weather. So who would win in a one-on-one? This isn't even as competitive as it sounds. With gorilla's weak, thin skin, slow speeds, and no means of a real attack, it can't really compete with a grizzly. If this was a lifting competition, the gorilla would win, but in the sense of any fight with a bear, especially a grizzly bear, the grizzly has the defense and offense to beat the gorilla 99.9% of the time. Shouts out to Harambe that we could beat anyone. The history of shell shock. Now officially named PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, in 1980. Despite its more recent discoveries, it's well documented, even in ancient times. This mental health condition arises when a person experiences or witnesses one or more traumatic events, most prominently occurring in war accidents, but also includes things like natural disasters, terrorism, or violent assaults. The symptoms include things like constant fear, stress, anxiety, and reliving your traumatic experience in flashbacks and nightmares. Also things like being jumpy, restless, easily angered, and not being able to sleep. During the 1800s, shell shock was seen as a sign of weakness and only affected the feeble-willed. The cure was public ridicule. The world wars were extreme cases where over half the enlisted soldiers were discharged with overstimulated nerves, going home with things like nightmares, tremors, anxiety, impaired sight, hearing loss, severe concussions, and the list goes on. It's safe to say with today's proper diagnosis, therapy, and medication available along with public understanding, the past was a horrible place to have PTSD, and as civilization becomes more civilized, hopefully all proper mental health hurdles will be conquered. Time out. Commercial break. Only 7% of you guys are subscribed. Help me change that. 92.4 of you guys subscribe right now while you're watching the video. That way you never miss one of these. Also, feel free to join the Discord down below. Alright, commercial break over. Zombie animals. Humans, since the beginning of storytelling, have been fascinated with the idea of humans walking around half alive. The animal kingdom has already seen cases like this. Snail zombies. While they can lead a normal life, some snails have the misfortune of being infected by the leucochloridium worms, which take over its body and leads the snail to a high place, pulsate like a juicy caterpillar, only to be eaten by a bird, as the bird's stomachs are the reproducing grounds. A more well-known zombie creator is the cordyceps, infecting ants' brains to climb up to a high place. Once it's stable, it sprouts out the ant's head and releases spores only to infect more ants. Unfortunately, there are two close instances in humans as well, both lethal. The first is prion disease, which you catch while eating another human's brain. It causes personality change, uncontrollable movements, and kills within 6 months. The other is rabies, the most lethal viral disease with a 99.9% mortality rate. If you get it, you will die, but not before suffering symptoms of aggressiveness, excessive movement, confusion, hallucinations, bizarre thoughts, foaming at the mouth, being unable to drink water, and the irresistible urge to attack other humans. Something like this being widespread would be the closest thing to a zombie outbreak, and the end of humanity as we know it. Top 5 rare photos from history. Number 5. This is the first traffic light in New York City. This picture is from the year 1922. Number 4. This is a photo of Ulysses S. Grant from the 1860s. The wooden stand behind him is a posture brace. Due to the long exposure time, it was used to help people stay still. Number 3. Here is a picture of the Empire State Building in the year 1941 from across the Hudson River in New Jersey. It had already been the biggest city for over 100 years at this point. Number 2. A photo of Adolf himself. He had this picture banned because it undermined his dignity. Luckily, it was rediscovered in 1945, along with others, but I feel this one was the most unflattering. And number 1. This year, a photo of Stalin became extremely popular. He was known for editing pictures and having complete control over letting pictures of himself looking strong and proud out to the public. This picture was taken sometime after he was informed Germany began their invasion into the Soviet Union. When it was taken, it was ordered to be destroyed, but Pravda risked his life to keep this candid image alive. Unsolved mysteries. Crop circles. They used to pop up on the news, movies, and in every type of media, claiming aliens were trying to connect with humans through a language unknown. They reached the height of their popularity from the 1980s to the early 2000s, but after cameras became more and more common, along with the use of drones, people performed these crop circles live on TV, and their mysterious nature became a lot less compelling. Flying rods. Like crop circles, were a phenomenon in the early video days. A lot of the times caught on camera as elongated creatures with multiple appendages. They could never be physically caught, so it was suspected they would travel through dimensions, only in ours for a few seconds. But when professional video cameras captured these alongside of the game cameras, it turned out to be moths distorted by motion blur. The face on Mars, discovered in 1976, little detail was uncovered as their image power was tiny compared to today. With recent cameras, we can see the hill is, well, just a hill. And people were affected by the common tendency of seeing faces in objects. You know about that if you see my video on pareidolia. So there you have it, solved mysteries that were probably pretty mysterious in your parents' days. Mind-blowing facts with Jearrod. In the entire world, this circle holds more population than the whole rest of the world combined. Solifugids, or more commonly known as the camel spider, aren't actually spiders. They're known for being a foot long, faster than humans, and highly venomous. And none of that is true. They're around 6 inches, sort of quick, but only about 10 miles per hour top speed, and not deadly to humans. It would take nearly 1.2 million mosquitoes sucking at you at the same time to suck you dry of blood. This is how to bust a nut that's stuck. And lastly, this is the sword-billed hummingbird, the only bird with a beak longer than its own body. Just imagine if your nose was longer than your entire body. That'd be freaking weird. 2-sentence horror stories. When I told them I'd found a diet that'd make me outlive them all, they laughed in my face. Nobody's laughing now, although some of them did taste a bit funny. As the clerk handed me developed prints, he asked shyly if I did horror photography for a living, or was it just a hobby? I couldn't answer as I frantically ripped open the pack to see the photos I took alone in my grandmother's empty house. Haunted corn mazes in early fall were always a favorite seasonal afternoon to me. That was until I limped, bloody and broken, further into the labyrinth and heard a chainsaw roar in the distance. I flipped on the news, looking to see if they found the serial killer's latest victim. I watched with gleeful anticipation as they opened the front door to my ex-wife's house. They were going to display my newest work on national television. I always wondered, when I closed my door, does the outside world still remain? Today, The answer was no. I told my boyfriend to bend over the swimming pool to get a better view of my pet. It's easier to get new boyfriends than it is to buy food for a 10-foot crocodile. Why is it Thanksgiving? A common story told in many American schools for hundreds of years now is that the Pilgrims came to America, a randomly unnamed tribe of Indians sat down, cooked them a big dinner, handed over the rights to America, and lived happily ever after, which is pretty obvious it's not true. The generation before ours questioned nothing. On the other hand, the generation now questions everything, leading us to the truth they were trying to hide. It was taught natives had no such belief in land property, which was a lie. On the day to be thankful, natives had to look back over a history of genocide that continued up into the 80s, in a country they were not deemed human into the 70s, with the Declaration of Independence signed writing them in as merciless Indian savages. A holiday that started with the celebration of the slaughtering of the Pequot natives. Immigrants flooded from Europe taking control of the Wampanoag natives' land, food, and life. The Great Harvest for Thanksgiving lays on the result of killing 50% of all the natives that live in the New England area, a war nobody wants to remember, which shows what was to come. As soon after, 90% of Native Americans were wiped out, covered up by disease, laws, lies, and genocide. So if you're wondering why Thanksgiving might not be a holiday to your native friends, this might be the reason. Don't forget to tune in next time. We wouldn't want you to miss out on any mysterious content, now would we? Stat maps of the US. The highest and lowest educated states, the red ones are the dumb ones. The healthiest are the least healthy, the red ones are the unhealthiest. The highest paid by state, the blue ones are the lowest paid. The percentage of obese children, the darker the red, the higher the percentage. Teen pregnancy percentage, the darker the red, the higher the teen pregnancy. The poverty rate by state, the darker, the more impoverished. Red versus blue states of the 2020 election. I'm sure we all have this ingrained in our heads. The oldest population states, the darker, the older. Federal aid. The darker the state, the higher percentage of people receiving money from the government. And lastly, the overall reported happiness by state. The darker the state, the happier the population. Top 5 smartest and dumbest dogs. For the top 5, smartest is based off how quick they learn. Obviously, if their human isn't smart enough to communicate with them, their intelligence will vary. Number 5, Dobermans. Number 4, Golden Retrievers. Number 3, German Shepherds. Number 2, Poodles. And the smartest dog, verified by canine psychologists, apparently, is the Border Collie. It's not what I expected, but it's understandable. They get roles in movies easy because they're so easy to train. Now the dumbest. Remember, there are exceptions and varying intelligence. Number 5, Borzoi. Number 4, Chow Chow. Number 3, Bulldog. Number 2, the Basenji. And number 1, the Afghan Hound. It's weird how some of the dumbest dogs have all been really changed to extremes. They're kind of all looks and no brain. I'm sure a couple people watching this can relate. So yeah, there's your smartest and your dumbest. Sorry if you got one of the dumb dogs. Top 5 biggest lottery winners. Number 5, $590.5 million. In May of 2013, Gloria McKenzie opted to receive the after-taxes amount of $370 million in a lump sum, being described as the nicest person to ever win the lottery. Number 4, $648 million in December of 2013. Ira Curry and Steve Tran both won it. After taxes, they both received $173 million. Number 3, $656 million in March of 2012. This one had 3 winners, and the last to claim it anonymously, with 2 other people who named themselves the Three Amigos. Their identity is still unknown. Number 2, $758.7 million in August of 2017. Mavis Wanslick selected to collect the lump sum and received $480 million and quit her job the very same day. Number 1, and the biggest lottery prize ever won was $1.586 billion in January of 2016. There were 3 winners, John Robinson, Maureen Smith, and Marvin Acosta, who each received $327 million apiece. Either way, these top 5 winners have life-changing money. What would you do if you won this type of money? I know what I'd do. The creepiest theories known to man. If the human body senses trauma it is unable to combat, it will switch off metabolism, pump endorphins, and slip into a pain-free dissociative state. In essence, you just shut down. Prey animals display this behavior when they're caught by predators. That's why they seem so unfazed when they're about to be eaten. If you die while being beheaded, the last thing you might see is your decapitated body. The dark forest theory. Why haven't we seen any other advanced life forms, despite the vastness of the universe? Other advanced life forms don't send out signals into the rest of the universe because they're worried that something more advanced and dangerous is going to find them first. Dead-end trips. It's possible to travel so far away from where you started that the expansion of the universe will exceed the speed you were traveling at. You can't return home because home is receding faster than you can travel. You can't reach your destination because it too is receding faster than you can travel. You can no longer get anywhere, only get further away from everything. You will not reach a destination, even if you travel forever. That humans almost went extinct 70,000 years ago when a volcano in Indonesia erupted. There are theories that there's a genetic bottleneck around the time and took our population down from somewhere from 3,000 to 10,000. Without this event, we may have advanced faster and been healthier people today. That you might be aware of everything happening during surgery. The anesthesia keeps you from moving and causes you to forget. It's scary that there are thousands of serial killers out there at any one given time, who often just blend into the rest of society and live normal lives. Many will never be caught. Lastly, that mind control actually exists. It's something that would never go public, because whoever was able to perfect it first would be in a position to use it on whoever is aware of its existence. The backrooms, level 7. This is the second to last level of the backrooms, and it is extremely different from all other levels. It's flooded with distilled water that seems to go on forever. The water is freezing cold, so it's advised to stay out of it as much as possible. Rooms upon rooms are stacked up, peeking out of the water, acting as islands to travelers, though they are spread pretty far apart from one another. This level is scattered with skeletons, both from fish and human-like creatures. There is said to be one living creature that kills off anything it sees, hence the skeletons. But it's highly likely you won't see this creature due to the vastness of the ocean-like level. But if you do, I can't imagine you'd be the first to best a creature since its discovery. To exit and move on to the last level, you need to find a more shallow depth of the water, find the carpeted hole in the ground, and swim through it. As blatantly obvious as it should be, do not swim through the exit marked as not an exit. This will lead you back to level 4. Swimming through the carpeted hole will lead you to the last and final level. Sadly, all your hard work will be for naught, thanks to the last level, the cave system. Top 5 things you never knew had a name. Number 5. That space in between your eyebrows that you shave and think everyone else naturally just doesn't grow hair there and you're a special kind of hairy monster? Yeah, that space is called a galabella. Number 4. When you're switching lanes on a highway and it feels like you're driving over dead bodies, those little things are called bots dots. Not to be confused with the highly similar but extremely different Stimsonite reflectors. Number 3. Angina. Actually, you probably know this one from iCarly, but still, I wanted an excuse to say it. Also, angina is just chest pain. Number 2. A thing I hate, because once I started looking at them, I always noticed them, and they're supposed to be a background feature, the philtrum. Number 1. And lastly, the F-hole, which are duly located on either side of a violin, appropriately named for its appearance resembling an F. What'd you think it was? This is freaking PG-13 content, you creep.